Hi everyone, what do you think of my new glasses? I hope you like them. Today's video, we're talking about 3 myths about SSRIs, or also known as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or also called antidepressants. Now, this is a part 2 of a series I'm doing on SSRIs and antidepressants and the use of them in midlife and at menopause. So if you haven't already watched part 1, which is about when it's a good idea to consider an SSRI, I would stop this video and check that out first and then come right back here. If you've already watched that, we're gonna get into 3 myths about SSRIs that I wanna debunk for you. So let's get right into it. Before we do, if you don't know me, I'm Dr. Heather Hirsch, and I'm the Clinical Program Director of the Menopause and Midlife Clinic at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, and I see patients on a consultative basis. I absolutely love my job and love getting to talk about midlife and menopause all the time. If you look at the description bar below, I'm going to link everything there, including my podcast, which I'm almost about to hit 100 episodes, so please check all that stuff out. I've also linked my favorite vitamins and supplements that I recommend from Amazon, so check that out before we get into today's video. There are absolutely times when it is necessary to start on an SSRI, particularly if your mood, your anxiety, your depression, or your obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, is taking over your quality of life. And the way I talk about this to my patients is if you're having more bad days than good days, or you feel like you're not present more often than you are present, or it's very, very, very hard to do so. The first myth I want to break down is that SSRIs change your personality. Now, that is not true. Your personality is pretty strong, I have to tell you, and nothing is going to significantly change it. Now, particularly if you are starting at a low dose and you have anxiety, mild depression, or OCD. Now, for some more difficult, complex, or really extreme cases, that is really not what I'm trying to discuss here in this video. I'm talking about that generalized anxiety, mild low mood, or OCD, or repetitive thoughts that we're treating with a low dose SSRI. They should not change your personality. In fact, they should actually take the edge off of the things that are really bothering you, ruminating, and not letting you enjoy your life. So I always say, actually, if anything, you should just really feel this lifting of this weight on your shoulders that's potentially been there for a really long time. And an SSRI could really free up your mind to allow you to think about the things that you really need to think about. Perhaps it's productivity at your job, perhaps it's also being thoughtful with friends and family, and definitely being present. For a lot of people, when they take these at bedtime, that can also help them fall asleep, and they can stop those ruminating thoughts. Because let me ask you, have you ever solved any of life's mysteries before going to bed? You probably haven't. So comment below if you are someone who gets into bed and you ruminate, and or if you found the use of an SSRI particularly helpful. Because we do want to take the stigma out of using SSRIs. For many people, it really does give them this freedom back to actually be significantly so much more healthy. So it is not going to change your personality. It's not going to change who you are or how you think. The way you know it's working right is actually it frees up your mind so that you can think about the things that you really need to do instead of continuing to ruminate, have obstructive thoughts, or have really low mood. The second myth that I want to deconstruct is that these are addictive. Now, they're not addictive. Now, they're also safe to be used for long term, so there is no time limit at which you have to stop an SSRI if you're feeling as though it is really helping. And they're not addictive because they don't stop your central nervous system from working. So let me give you another example of something that is addictive. So benzodiazepines, for example, Ativan or Xanax, these are CNS depressants, and they're in the benzodiazepine class. The way they work is they work really fast by actually pretty much just shutting off your central nervous system, letting it check out for a second, and then bringing you back down. The reason that can be addictive, especially when used for sleep, so let's use that as an example, is that because you have this awesome way to actually just shut off your brain, you never learn how to actually fall asleep yourself. In fact, you get farther and farther and farther away from that because you have this magic pill that's going to help you fall asleep right away. And so over time, those sleep hygiene habits get worse, and you get more and more and more reliant on a benzodiazepine to help you either sleep or acutely to help with your anxiety. An SSRI does not work like that. It increases serotonin and sometimes serotonin and norepinephrine in your brain, and those are neurochemicals that can help you feel a little bit more stable, less anxious, or less low. And sometimes these are used seasonally. Sometimes they're used when hormones are changing. So again, if you haven't watched part 1 of this video, a lot of times I use these to help blunt hot flashes or mood issues associated with midlife and menopause, and sometimes they have a season. If you're using an SSRI and you are also working on yourself, including learning how to journal or meditate or doing cognitive behavioral therapy, those are all really important things that you could and should be doing, so that if you do want to come off your SSRI, which is an absolutely personal choice, you will have the skills to be able to do so when those seasons change. So they are not addictive. And again, they're not going to change your personality. And lastly, the third thing that I want to discuss is the idea that if you need this means you have failed, or you've not done something right, or something is wrong with you. And I can't tell you how far off from the truth that is. In today's world, we have evolved, and technology has evolved, and social media has evolved, and things have evolved so fast. We live in an immensely fast-paced, high-stress world. And there is no way to undo all of those stressors unless we maybe move to a completely remote area, don't use any technology, and just start getting our own food in the wilderness. Something pretty extreme. Could you do that? Sure. But is that likely to be an option for most people? No. And at the same time, humans are living much longer. We are developing other chronic diseases. Other humans are developing chronic diseases. That has so many things going on. At the same time, our physiology, our anatomy, our hormones are all changing in midlife and at menopause. And there is so many things. To me, let's not use the word, I don't love the word fail, but you failed if you are ignoring or not adequately addressing or taking seriously your low mood, your anxiety, or your depression. You're not going to achieve the things that you want to achieve because you're putting it off, or you're pushing it off, or you're fearing that means that you have failed. There's certainly a lot of changes in our society and acceptance of mental health, but what I notice is that when it comes to us, that's where we feel still shame and stigma. It's okay for everyone else. It's definitely safe, but it's not something I need, or I certainly can eat better or exercise better. And all of those things can help, but it does not mean that you have failed if you have tried to exercise, or if you have successfully exercised, or if you've worked on your sleep hygiene, but you're still not finding that you can turn your brain off at night. You've only failed if you can't feel as though each day is as good as it can be, if you're not as productive as you know that you can be, and you're not as present with your family as you know that you'd like to be. So you have not failed if you need the use of an SSRI. Absolutely not. In fact, I have a whole podcast on this. I will drop the link down below. It's about my journey. And so if you feel worried or shamed or stigmatized, feel free to check out that podcast episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know I've spent 2 weeks talking about the use of SSRIs, SNRIs, and antidepressants to control midlife and menopausal symptoms, but it is something really important that we should touch on, because there is not one size that fits all. There's not one right answer for everybody. And again, as I said in my last video, while I do spend a lot of time discussing hormone therapy because I think that's where the most myths and misconceptions lie, I do want you to know a little bit more about the biggest classification of medications called SSRIs that we use as well. So if you found this helpful, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. We are almost at 10K subs. And if you don't follow me over on Instagram at hormone.health.doc, you definitely should, because I let you guys weigh in on a lot of the topics that you want to hear about and submit what you want to do for the Q&A when we get to 10K subs. I'm also on TikTok at Heather Hirsch MD, and that channel has been growing and that community is so wonderful. So if you're on TikTok, check me out there. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and I'll see you next week for a brand new video. Bye everyone.